Every piece that I work on that is inspired by trying to represent somebody who did something meaningful for the community kind of evokes different feelings, and I thoroughly enjoyed getting to know who Ida was. I always do like to get as much background information on a character or person that I'm doing, whether they're alive or have died, because it helps me to understand the spirit of the project and the intent of the work, and that's very important to me. She had such respect for people, wherever they came from. I guess there's some humility that I perceive in her, as well as boldness, and I think that's a surprising combination.
Well, she was a amazing, strong African-American woman who came out of slavery and made a contribution to society, and is representative of how important it is to speak up for justice and fairness. And she lived her life doing that.
When we began to think about how to show Ida B. Wells, how to develop a statue of her that would go in an outside setting, first of all, you have to consider at what age is she going to be. And so we chose the time period that she was in Memphis. It was a time when she was in her late teens to early 20s.
When she was in Memphis, she lived with his aunt in an area, apparently it was called the 10th Ward. So when she got there, she was able to find a teaching job. Then she became very involved with many of the newspapers. She was an excellent writer. That was a big part of her background. But the thing that finally really pushed her off, two major incidents in Memphis. One, she took the train. She would always pay for a first-class ladies' car. And is the incident where she got on the train and they didn't want her to sit in that particular compartment. They wanted her to go back, sit with the others in the colored compartment, I guess. So she refused to move. And then after she refused to move and they threatened to throw her off the train, she finally got off the train, but she sued the railroad and she won. The other major event that happened to her that was problematic, her three friends who had bought a grocery store across the street from a white owner. They were very unhappy about that, and eventually had threatened that store many times and the people who had bought that store. So at one point, white owners attacked that grocery store, but these people fought back. And in the instance of fighting back, one of the men, the whites, were killed. They went in and removed them from the jail. The blacks who were there removed them from the jail, and they were lynched. They were killed. And so after that incident, when she wrote her article, her editorial, that really drew attention and really clarified the injustice of her three friends, the commercial wrote articles back recommending that this woman was too uppity, that she very much was a troublemaker, because along with her editorial to criticize how bad that was, she suggested that there ought to be some action. That included they needed to boycott the transportation, the trolley. They needed to pull their business, from several other things. And that was very much catching on. And so the commercial wrote very much in opposition of that and encouraged people to be prepared to put this woman in her place. By the time this happened, she had opened her, was editor-in-chief of her own paper called The Free Speech. And so one of the things that also happened with that kind of inciting that went on with the commercial is that they went in and did a lot of damage and destroyed her newspaper. But she was warned not to come back, and it was based on her having written those articles. After that is when she put that book together, The Southern Horrors, where she actually documented the number of lynchings.
I didn't realize how wonderful a person she was until I started to read more about her. And in doing that, it just helps me to understand why she's important, why it's important to have her recognized, and why she's such an icon for us to try to emulate in our lives.
Throughout her life, she was an amazing leader. And when you give consideration to the fact she was a woman, this is not a time where women were really regarded, and they certainly was unusual for them to be able to step out and stand out and take a stance on something. But she was able to do that. So I think the statue is absolutely a wonderful idea, and I hope that what it is going to do is to make anyone who does not understand this particular history, this kind of a model, make them ask, who is this and what does this mean?